Christians are Christians, God is love, that kind of mentality. So like I never really had a label, I guess, for Catholics until, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to marry you. Like it was a really weird, pivotal moment. When I stand before Christ one day, when I stand before God, am I going to say, sorry, I didn't become Catholic because I was too scared of losing my friends?
Hey, my name is Matt Poole, and this is Unapologetically Catholic, the show where I talk about the reasons why I am unapologetically Catholic and think you should be too. And this week, very clearly, I have a very special guest. This is my lovely, lovely wife.
This makes me so uncomfortable.
This is the first time I've ever done, for like video part. So we did something like this a year and a half ago.
It was like your 5th or 6th podcast episode ever or something.
Yeah, it was the audio only version, but this is the first time we're doing this in person with a video camera. So anyways, I wanted to talk to you about how, like, your experience coming into the Catholic Church. Because we came in at separate times, and actually we were talking about this earlier, but this month, November, you have been Catholic for 1 year.
Yes. I looked it up. It was November 3rd.
Nice. So, okay. So for everybody who doesn't know, how did you grow up? Like, what church denomination, what was your church life like as a kid?
We were kind of all over the place. A little bit of Baptist, a little bit of Church of Christ. I would say non-denominational, overarching theme. Until we met, obviously, when we were 14. And from then on out, I was Baptist. So.
Yeah. So that's where we met, is the Southern Baptist Church.
Yes.
Because you guys did hop around a lot before then. I know I guess it was mostly your mom was really into the, what is it called? Like the faith healing and the Joel Osteen kind of stuff.
Yeah, she is a really big follower of like Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar, that kind of thing. I would say for the most part, it was Church of Christ when I was really little. And then non-denominational. And then obviously I split from, my parents were going to one church and then I was going to a different church, the church we grew up in. So I would say foundationally, I'm probably Baptist for the most part. That's where I really like sunk into the faith.
Yeah, because I can remember you not long after we met, maybe it was a couple of years, maybe 15 or 16. I very distinctly remember a conversation where you kind of were saying on your own, yeah, the faith healing, name it, claim it, like Creflo Dollar, Joel Osteen stuff wasn't right. And at the time, we would have both said, oh, but this Calvinistic Reformed theology, like this is the true good theology. Is that right?
I mean, I would say you.
Yeah, that's true.
We're more like that. I had more of a blend. So I think, I mean, obviously, this is why it takes off so well, is that there is truth in the, faith healing kind of aspect of things. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of took more of a balanced approach, I feel like, because I remember us having arguments about certain, like I was arguing with my family on certain points, but I was also arguing with you as well on certain things. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I was kind of stuck in the middle, I feel like.
I do remember going through a very, like, cage stage Calvinist Reformed Protestant where, there would be a church that would have smoke shows and guitar rock bands for the church service. And I was like, oh, that's not a real...
Which is funny because you were so into John Mark McMillan.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it didn't make any sense.
That and Gungor. I was a big Gungor fan.
Gungor. Honestly,
I
still kind of like them. It's their old stuff.
I was a super obnoxious, like, hipster.
Oh, he's 1,000% a hipster. But he was the hipster that if you called him a hipster, like it was the end of the world.
I was obnoxious. I probably still am a little bit, but hopefully
Yeah,
not
it's just
as
morphed
obnoxious.
into different things.
Oh gosh. But okay. So we grow up and like as we're going to the Southern Baptist Church, I slowly start getting more into apologetics. You kind of, I don't know that you ever really dove super into apologetics, but you did some of it because like you were saying, like you would have conversations and debates with your parents, but then you would also like debate and have conversations with me and other Southern Baptists as well. So did you ever get too into apologetics?
Mm, I don't think so. I think I got into it as far as like the core stuff that really mattered at the time, but I didn't really dive into. I feel like you're one of the people that like you get into apologetics and you get into all aspects of apologetics. Whereas I was like, I have these specific things that I'm interested in that are like relatable and applicable to my life.
Mm,
And so I'm going to research those, but everything else was just like, yeah,
yeah.
not listening. Because I know we did a ton of apologetics classes growing up in the youth group, and I took what I took, and I didn't what it didn't matter.
Yeah. Okay, so did you ever what were your thoughts at that time on Catholicism? Because it wasn't talked about Catholicism wasn't talked about much then, but it was brought up every once in a while.
Well, Catholicism for me was like I really didn't even have an idea
Hmm, yeah.
of what it was. I had an aunt that was Catholic, like a CNE, but other than that, everybody else in my family, like it was Christians are Christians, God is love, that kind of mentality. So like I never really had a label, I guess, for Catholics until, I mean, we started learning about it in the way that we learned about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction because or an important point to bring up because there was a good bit of in those apologetics classes, like we would go on summer youth retreats or even winter youth retreats. And when they would do those, if there was an apologetics class, if they talked about Catholicism, well, I don't think they did much.
We had one summer where Chad
Mm,
taught about multiple faith
that's right.
groups. Like we talked about Muslims and we talked about Mormonism and we talked about Catholicism
Hmm.
in like a series. But other than that, I don't think it was like they were honing in on Catholics.
Yeah. And I think whenever we would talk about Catholics, it was always the reason we're not Catholic is because, and it was like the stereotypical, they re-crucify Christ at Mass. They, they elevate Mary to a level of worship or really close to it, and the problems of like they would say, oh, the Pope is infallible, meaning like, well, every word he says is infallible.
Yeah, I would say like going back to your original question, that was kind of my viewpoint was like whatever we were taught,
Mm,
pretty much the like arguments you hear to people about that people use that don't really understand Catholicism.
yeah, yeah,
That was the concept I had of Catholicism that oh, they told me these things. I didn't really research it
yeah.
past that point. So,
Yeah, because for you, and I think for me too, at that point, it was kind of like, oh,
what? I'm
well,
never going to be Catholic, so it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
right. Like, well, this person obviously has studied Catholicism. I, I mean, I had aunts and uncles and cousins who were Catholic, but they like never brought it up, and so it would be just
Yeah,
like,
no.
well, that's what so and so said about that's what Chad or whoever else said Catholics believe. So that I
Right.
guess that's what Catholics believe.
Yeah. I
But
mean, that was kind of my grasp of Catholicism at the time.
yeah. So how old would I have been? Maybe 18 when I started studying Catholicism? Because that's around, I think I was 18 or 19.
I think it was 19 because we were engaged going through marriage counseling at the time
Yeah.
when Chad was talking to us about, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. Um, he hadn't converted yet, I don't think, but he was like, "Nah, man, like I've been talking to somebody."
Yeah. I don't remember. I think he did. I think he had already
Really?
converted.
I
I
don't
think
know
so.
the timeline much on that. I just know like the first time you really brought it up as like, no, this is like really important to me was our last marriage counseling session.
Mm.
And the pastor that was going to marry us was like, dude, like, I just need to know if you're going to convert. Like, you need to tell me because I'm not going to be able to marry you.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to marry you. Like, it was a really weird, pivotal moment
Yeah.
of our relationship. So
Yeah.
I think that's when I probably took the hardest stance of like, Catholics are heretics. Like, what are you talking about? So,
Yeah. Because I remember Rick when we did the marriage counseling with him.
it was our last session.
Yeah. And he brought up he said, okay, well, I just I want to ask you because I know you've been studying Catholicism a little bit.
Well, Rick and Chad were really good friends too, so I'm sure they
Yeah.
were talking about it as well.
Yeah. And he asked me, he said, which I'm really glad he did, and I'm very grateful that he did because I feel like this is what he was being a good
Leader.
shepherd and
Yeah.
leader to say, hey, I need to know if you're going to become Catholic because if you are, one, I can't marry you guys, and two, if you're going to, you really need to think about like the church has the teachings on contraception, and if you're on one page about contraceptives and she's on another page, that can cause some real big rifts. And plus the fact that you're going to a Catholic church and she's not going to a Catholic church, that can cause some serious tension.
Yeah, and when you bring kids into the mix, it's just gonna escalate it to a huge degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's not to say that it's impossible to do it. I mean, we did it for a little
Yeah.
while, but it absolutely is. It's hard. And so I think it was good of him to at least bring up that warning and say, "Hey, you guys need to consider this because this is not something to be taken lightly."
No, yeah. I mean, as our last marriage counseling session, it would have been so much easier for him to just brush it off and like look away. But I think it just shows like he loved both of us and he cared about both of us and our souls,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think it was really good.
So so at that point, what was going through your mind? Because I was kind of at that point, because I remember we got in the car and after this meeting, and you said, if you're going to convert to Catholicism, I don't want to get married. And I remember I looked at you and I said, no, I'm going to continue studying Catholicism and I can't tell the future. But as things are right now, I don't foresee converting to Catholicism.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. And I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, he's 1,000% gonna be Catholic. But like at
You
that
already knew.
point, yeah, no, like I was like, no, like you're gonna become Catholic. I know you are.
Mm.
Um, I think at that point, I mean, what was going through my mind was this is crazy. I didn't expect this, but like, I mean, when you proposed and I said yes, like that's when the commitment started for me. So I was in it,
Yeah.
whether I wanted to be in it or not. I mean, I contemplated, I was like, okay, well, they're saying Catholicism is heresy. So, like, this is a big deal. But I think that's also where, like, the aspect of, like, my younger years came in and, like, being able to balance the fact that, like, you know, they're taking hard stands over here on, like, Catholics are heretics, rah. But I'm, like, very much like, God also looks at your heart,
Mm.
So I think that helped balance in my mind, like, my decision. And I was like, okay, well, we're going forward with this. He's gonna be Catholic though.
Yeah. Because I think that's a really good point. Because I think if the roles were reversed
Oh,
and
you would have
you
1,000% left me in the dust.
Yeah, at that point I probably would have because I was like so blindly prideful. Yeah, I was very prideful and I think it was pride. And I think it was really prideful and arrogant and but like super blind to it because I would always say, "Oh, well, you know, sorry, I have convictions about the truth," like
Right, you would. When we would have arguments, you would always try to like do stuff like that and be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna talk to you because I'm not like I can't.
yeah.
Like There's no way. And
Yeah,
look, now you get to talk to people like that all the time.
I know.
Karma.
Yeah, it is. But anyways, okay, so you and so we get married, and I'm still studying Catholicism because there was a long period. That was probably I studied Catholicism for 8 years total. I think we were probably married for 6 of those 8 years, maybe 5 of the 8 years, somewhere between 5 and 7 of those 8 years of looking into Catholicism. So throughout that time, I mean, that's a big window. But what was your thoughts? Because you were a part of some of these groups. Like I can remember at the Presbyterian church we went to, sometimes at home group, which home group is like where,
You just meet once a week,
yeah, so like,
fellowship, and talk about the sermons.
yeah, 3 to 7 max families would meet at somebody's house and they would have a meal and then they would talk about the sermon or like maybe a different book or part of scripture or something like that. And there were times where we would be in home group that it would almost turn into like a debate.
Yeah, well, the home group, it never really shifted. Like our group stayed pretty constant. I mean, we're still really good friends with all of those people today.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were just involved in each other's lives so often that they knew you were studying it hardcore. So they would ask questions, and yeah, it would definitely lead to debates. I think I just turned my eyes away from it and tuned out everything. I was kind of like, I feel like for the most part, I was in like, I wouldn't say denial, but like there's I guess denial.
Mm.
Like he's studying it and I know it, but I'm just gonna pretend like he's not. I'm gonna pretend like it's not happening. And then I found the rosary in your car, and then
Yeah.
and it all shattered.
That's right. That's a funny story. So I do have to tell that. I am studying Catholicism. I don't know how at what point, maybe halfway in, so maybe like 4 years or something like that, maybe a little bit longer. But I had been studying and slowly but surely became more and more convinced of these different aspects of Catholicism. And I thought, well, that's true, that's true. And at one point, I remember thinking, well, praying to the saints, there's nothing wrong with that. And then kind of thinking, well, maybe I will start praying a rosary. Like that might not be a bad idea.
I think you mentioned this in one of your last videos, talking about like your Crohn's and how you went
Mm.
to the church to pick up the rosary and all of this stuff. And I was like watching it and I was like, failed to mention a really important detail in
left
there.
left out a key detail. So yes. So I was trying to think of, okay, well, where do I get a rosary? And I thought I can't buy one online because then it's going to come to the house and Angel's going to see it. And I don't know how Angel's going to respond. Like I didn't know how you were going to respond to
Angrily.
me having a rosary. And so then I thought, well, there's a church in the town next to ours. It was maybe 30 minutes away, but for my job at the time, I had to travel and I had to drive through that town to
It
get.
just sounds like a sleazy, like cheating story. Like literally, this is what it sounds like. I had to
Yeah,
go in the next town over. I had a sales job.
yeah,
Had to hide it from my wife. Wasn't sure how she'd handle it. Like this is what it sounds like.
yeah, that is true. But so I went into this church and I stopped. Yeah, I think it was a Friday because of where I would always go on Fridays. It was a Friday and I stopped in and I went. They had like a little bitty tiny area where you could buy sacramentals from. And I said, "Yeah, I want to buy a rosary." And the lady was so excited. She was like, "Oh, are you Catholic?" And I was like, "No, I'm not Catholic, but I'm studying the faith." And she was like, "Well, let me. Oh, that's so cool. Here, I'll give you this pamphlet on how to pray it, and let me show you." She like walked me through it, and then she even said after I bought it, she was like, "Oh, let me see." I don't remember the priest that was there, but she said, "Let me see if Father so and so is available, and I'll get him to bless it for you." And at the time, I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, "Oh, it's okay. I don't need him to bless it." And she was like, "No, no, you need somebody to bless this for you." And I was thinking, "Oh man, am I?"
What did I just do?
Yeah, am I like what in the world?
What did I get myself into?
Yeah. So I bought one and I would pray it in the car because I traveled so much for work. I was like, "Oh well, just pray it in the car.
Yeah, and at the time, Mary was one of my like my biggest hang up.
Yeah.
Um, that I like we would constantly talk about
Mm.
and argue over. And so yeah, I was in your car one day with a friend. I think Harley had come to visit and I was looking for some gum or like a pen. I like opened the center console and I was like searching around. All of a sudden, I hear beads. I'm like, what the heck? And I pull it out and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And just like the thoughts, it was literally like finding like a dirty photo of some other woman in your car.
Yeah,
Like
or
that's
like
what it felt
some
like.
other woman's underwear or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
literally that's what, except it was rosary. It was Mary,
Yeah,
like,
right.
but the other woman.
Yeah.
But like it just took me so off guard. And so that wasn't great.
Yeah. That I do remember you were very upset about
Well,
that.
that's one of the key moments that I was like, oh my gosh, like I was right. Like he's
Mm.
totally gonna become Catholic. It was like solidifying the thought that I had before we even got married of like, I was right. Dang,
So
this is
that
actually happening.
yeah. So that must have been like the turning point from maybe being like a little bit in denial of it and kind of going, well, yeah, it might happen, but I can just brush it off to the side to now it was more of a, well, boy, here it comes.
Oh, no, I was like, he has a rosary. He's definitely praying. It's not just, he doesn't
Mm.
have this in his center console. Like, I knew you were using it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was definitely, I think that's when I started asking you more questions. Because up until that point, I had been very like, don't talk to me about it. Like, you can study it on your own. I already know what I feel about this, how I feel about this. And so if you need to study it, you go right ahead. And then this was like the turning point of like, no, he's definitely like going to convert. And I need to like prepare myself for that and what that looks like for us in marriage. We already had a kid and I think one on the way at this time. And so I was like, we're about to shift into a whole new dynamic with children involved. And so I was like starting to ask like big questions and, you know, really dive into it.
Yeah. Because up to that point, I do remember I would learn something and I would be excited about it and I would come and tell you and you would like you would not that you were rude or whatever, but you just didn't it would be like you talking to me about new makeup that you bought. I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. Like I'm glad you got the new lipstick."
Well, that's how it felt to me
Yeah,
because I wasn't gonna convert.
right.
It didn't really care. Like it wasn't anything of significance. Like it was a big deal to you
Yeah.
because you were on your way to converting, but it was not a big deal to me.
Yeah. And I think for me, a lot of that time I genuinely didn't know that like I didn't
You were in denial.
I was in denial for myself
Yeah, no.
because I didn't think that I would have become Catholic, but I did. I genuinely was just trying to figure out if this was true or not. Originally, I always say like in the very beginning, the first 4 years or so was trying to figure out like how to disprove Catholicism. The next 3.5 were thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe this is another denomination and maybe they're right, but I don't really know. And then that last few months was really intense. Like, oh no, I have to become Catholic.
Right, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I remember the last few months. I think that's when it really set in for me that things were about to change. Because I know, like, every time we would have communion at KCP,
Mm.
you would just, like, hate it. You would, like, complain about it on the way home because you're just like, it's not real. And just like the whole, like, you just started, like, I could tell you were not enjoying where you were at and like it was time to move on, but you were like holding back because I mean, I'm assuming like it was going to be a hard conversation and you were trying to decide like that's a big decision. Like, am I going to take my family,
Yeah.
out and like become Catholic or like how is this going to work? Like, And you also have a tendency in these big decisions to be kind of passive and like, you know,
Yeah.
not be confrontational and like, this is what we're gonna do. Um, but I could definitely sense something was changing.
Yeah. I often share, like, when I talk to people about my conversion story, I'll tell people that I was convinced logically for the longest time, but then I don't feel like that was enough to push me over the edge to say, "Oh no, we have like this is something we have to do." Because I was at the point for a while where I thought Catholicism was another denomination that you could pick. Like, we were Presbyterian, we grew up Southern Baptist. You could also be Catholic if you wanted to. That was just kind of lumped into all the other denominations. But I, yeah, I mean, I think at that point, within those last few months, or like right the last 6 months or so, I was at that point of, well, this might be. I thought it was just another denomination, but I thought they had more right than the Presbyterians had. And I think one of the biggest things for me was that made me think that they were more of a correct denomination was baptism. Because at the
Yeah.
Presbyterian church, they would do infant baptism, but they would always say, well, this is like an engagement ring. So this child isn't really saved yet, but it's a promise that one day they will be.
Yeah, they're part of the covenant, but they haven't made the faith their own. So it was just a really weird. Yeah, I remember that's actually one of the first instances because we had something at KCB happen and like we were talking about infant baptism and like they wouldn't say the baby's not saved, but they wouldn't say the baby is saved and like
Mhm.
it was just this really weird and I was like it's either or like we can't this is awkward.
Yeah.
And I think you use that as a point to be like, well, Catholics. And I was like, dang, that actually sounds right.
Yeah.
So, I think that was one of the first points where I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not like terrible theology.
Right. Yeah, because I started to learn about covenantal theology when we were Presbyterian, and I remember thinking, man, that I don't know, that really makes sense that there was an old covenant sign that would put you into the covenant in the Old Testament, which was circumcision.
Right.
And now, like, God doesn't just destroy everything in the old covenant and then make up this totally, completely brand new thing in the new covenant. But no, the new is the fulfillment of the old. And so baptism is the new sign of the new covenant. But I always thought, okay, but why do like, they're part of the covenant, kind of, but not really? And that I wrestled with that super hard, and I never could find a good answer. And so at the time, we kind of, when I was thinking, well, Catholicism is another option that you could pick from, that's when I think I was logically thinking, well, this seems to logically make sense that they say that baptism saves you, and that seems to like make that makes the wires connect in
Yeah.
this covenantal theology system.
Yeah, definitely. Because it feels a lot like it should be one or the other. Like,
Yeah.
which a lot of our Presbyterian friends that we have don't baptize their infants because of this,
Hmm.
like, weird gray area that happens within that theology as far as Presbyterians go. Um, but yeah, I guess fast forward a few months later, I got a call while I was at a bachelorette trip at the beach with friends from our Southern Baptist church. And you were like, we're going to be Catholic. I mean, you didn't say it like that. That's what I heard. You were
Yeah.
like, we've got to go. And I was like, okay, it's happening. Great. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Because there were two major things that happened that made me get like push me over the edge. So the communion thing, which I shared in my conversion story before, that I had this almost like mystical type experience at the Presbyterian church where they were doing communion, and it was like I heard Jesus saying, like, I'm offering myself to you, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist at the Catholic Church. Why do you keep running away from me?
Mm.
And that was that like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I used to cry a ton as a kid, as you know.
Yeah.
I cried a ton when I was a child, and then as I got older, I was like, "Oh, you need to not cry about anything. Don't be a girl.
Yeah,
Don't
you went
be."
to the like other extreme as this very Matt-like thing to do.
Yes,
Like we're gonna go to the opposite
yeah.
spectrum.
And so that was like the first time I had cried about really anything in a long time. And just remember thinking, holy cow, what is happening to me? And that's why I'll say that like that part of my story was the conversion of heart. And that was like at that point I couldn't keep running. And I think it was that same Sunday, or maybe the next one. It was during COVID, kind of like a
It was like the
year.
tail end of COVID, really. I
Yeah,
mean, I was at the beach with friends,
yeah,
so like it had to have been past like really strict.
the super strict time. But
Yeah.
it was one of the time I remember so we lived down in the southeast, and for us down here, there was like mask mandates for a little bit, and then they went away for a while, and then they kind of brought them back, and then they made them optional as to who.
It was highly recommended.
Yeah. And so at the church, so for what, better or worse, I was very like, I'm not wearing a mask anymore because we had had enough time. And I thought, well,
Well, not only that, there was scientific evidence that like masks for the general public really didn't do
yeah,
much good. And you're very logical.
yes. And so I was like, I'm not doing it. And then I do remember think it was one of the pastors I had talked to, and he said something along the lines of like, oh, well, this helps other people feel like they can actually come back to church. And so I need you to just make the sacrifice for an hour on Sunday and wear this so that these people don't feel
They
like,
feel safe enough to come.
yeah.
Yeah.
And me being me was like, they can get over it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not wearing a mask. And it was me and like one other guy, I think. And they would bring everybody into the church. So all the families would start off in the church, and then we would sing some songs or something. And then they would split. The kids would go to children's church, and then they would do like regular church for all the adults. And when we had two kids at the time,
Mm, we
or
had
three.
three, but I had Jude with me at the beach.
That's right. So there was two with me, and I went to take them back to children's church. And when I came back out, one of the pastors, and all of these people are fine people. Like
Yeah, no.
I don't say any of this
It was
to.
also very stressful times.
Yes.
Like everyone, I think their nervous systems are shot and like
Yeah.
everyone's on high alert and on edge.
Yeah. But
So,
one of the pastors, he stopped me in the hallway and he said,
well,
"Hey
because they
Matt."
had just made the announcement to
Oh
everyone
yeah.
before or like right after the songs, like, hey, like, not that masks, like basically masks are required to be here,
Yeah.
is what they said.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, and we were walking back and he said, "Hey, he said, "Hey Matt, you need a mask?" And I said, "No, that's okay." And he said, "No, no, you need a mask." And I said, "No, that's okay. I'll just go stand outside." And so I did. I stood outside.
that's when you called me.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
And so I stood outside during the whole church service because I wanted the kids to like still be able to. I didn't want to go, "Come on, kids," and then have the kids be like, "What's going on?" at the ripe old ages of
Yeah, which was
4
a
and
weird part
3.
because I don't think they required them to wear masks.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't.
And
But
the nursery is the hub of all viruses, let me
yeah.
tell you. Especially, and if anybody from KCP is watching, they will 100% agree with this. KCP,
Yeah.
like hub, that is where all viruses are born.
Right.
Like for real.
Yeah. But so, and so I stood outside, and afterwards, I think this might have been the week after. And I think that was, yeah, it definitely would have been the next week. So at that point I was like, okay, well, today's the day. Like
I think that's what pushed you over the edge.
yeah, I was trying to find at that point. So at the week before, I was thinking I have to become Catholic, and then at that point, I was like, I've got to find a way to.
Because I remember before I left, we had a conversation about like, okay, maybe like I go to a Catholic church.
Hmm.
on Saturday
That's right.
evenings, and then we go to um a, our
Presbyterian.
Presbyterian church on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
And like you were just gonna like double service it,
Double
I
dip.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we were talking about it and like thinking about it because you had already told me like, no, like I really feel like this pull. And then that was just a like tipping point for you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's because at that point I was thinking, okay, I have to find a way to become Catholic, but I need to be strategic and I don't need to just rip everybody out and say, too bad, so sad, here we're going. I need to be smart about how I'm doing this. But then when that happened, I was like, all right, all that's going out the window. I don't care if I'm being smart about this or not. Like, we are
Yeah.
out of here. Because I thought to myself, I'm not going to keep going to this church, especially if they're going to say that, like, we have to wear masks.
And we agreed on that part
Yeah.
as well, as far as the mask mandates and everything.
And so then at that point I thought, okay, well, if I'm not going here, like the other option is the Catholic Church. I'm not going to look for another Protestant church. If I leave this church, I am going to become Catholic. And and so then I think that next week we were at the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I came back from the beach and that was the first time I've been to a Catholic mass.
Which what was that like for you?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was really different. At the time, well, still they don't really have nursery. And so that was a really big change because we had our kids in the service the entire time, which was what, three kids under four?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Um, and so that was definitely challenging. And then just the different environment. I had been to a couple of Catholic funerals before. And then one Catholic wedding, I believe, but that's still not the same, obviously, as a mass. And grew up non-denominational. I'm really used to the like 50-minute worship service and then like the 10-minute sermon.
Yeah.
And then like everybody like hangs out for a while. And so that aspect of it was like you enter and you shut up and you don't talk. Everyone's silent. And it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's a different world
Yeah.
for sure. Um, I love it now. And I do remember thinking like, oh, this is like really cool. You can definitely see like the Old Testament and the New Testament
Hmm.
coming together like throughout the entire service, really. And the blend of those two. So I thought that was really cool because a lot of like Protestant churches, especially the ones I grew up in, it's all like New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Like we cling to the New Testament, the old is like out the window. And it's like, no, that God is still the same. Like he's the same in the Old Testament as he is in the New Testament. Like, so I really enjoyed the blend,
Yeah.
I think.
I know for me, I had been listening through the Bible in a Year podcast with Father Mike Schmitz. And it was the year it came out. And I think this was probably in November when we went. October, November.
Um,
Is that right?
Probably the end of September or the beginning of October. I
Yeah.
know I went to the beach in September, but
So, yeah, so sometime September, October. And so we were getting close to the end of the Bible in the Year podcast. And I can remember going to Mass and thinking the same thing, like, holy cow, it was like I could see a timeline and I
yeah.
saw like the timelines all link, like the Old Testament linked to the New Testament linked to like me today 2000 years later. And so for me, when I went in, especially with all of this study that I had done, it was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed a lot of the aspects. Obviously, I come from like an artist background. My degree was going to be graphic design, like all of this stuff. So I was looking at all of like the art and like the tabernacle and all of this stuff like that too, because I remember going through at our Southern Baptist church, one of the pastors went through Exodus and like we read, you know, verse by verse exactly how things were made and designed and like all the meaning behind it. So I think that really came to life for me the first time we went to Mass as well, just remembering all of the things we talked about in Exodus and kind of seeing that unfold
Yeah.
as well. So that was really cool.
Yeah. And I know there was one time where I think it might have been the next week or maybe 2 weeks later where I went to mass on Saturday night and then we went to the Presbyterian church on
Yeah, I had a
Sunday as
mental
a family.
breakdown.
Yeah.
I had
So,
a mental breakdown. Well, this mental aspect of everything is the fact that like we all of my closest friends were um from the Southern Baptist Church for the most part, and everybody is, if they're, maybe they don't agree that Catholics are heretics, but they think Catholics are wrong. And so going from that to like almost feeling like shunned in a way, like everybody is shocked and coming at us with questions. Like people are like, you need to get divorced. Like he's not the spiritual leader in your family anymore. Like it's not just the theological issues that I'm dealing with, it's the social aspect of it that's really, really hard, especially as a woman with all woman friends who are all highly emotional. Like that's the part that like is really, really hard, and just the mental gymnastics you have to play with yourself in your head, and kind of like shutting off the emotional part for a while. Cause I think the first few weeks, that's what I did. And then it kind of all just like hit me. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't, everything's different. I am used to seeing our friends at church twice a week because we have home group and we have church service, if not more than that, because our kids go to the same school. And just having conversations. I was in a Bible study with somebody, like a Protestant Bible study at the time, and I quit halfway through because we started having conversations and she was just like, this is crazy. And so yeah, I had a mental breakdown
yeah.
basically. And I was like, can we just go one more time? Like, I just need to feel some sense of normal for a minute before I literally go check myself into a padded room. Like, for real. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, and I remember going, and that I think I remember telling you that I would be willing to continue doing that. Like, I'll go on Saturday
Yeah.
night myself, and then we can go together as a family on Sunday.
Yeah, we
But
repicked that conversation back up when I was in the middle of my mental crisis.
but I think you are the one who said, no, I just so what made you say no, let's just all go to mass together?
Um, I think, to quote Ruth, like what was in my head the whole entire time was like, where you go, I'll go, and where you stay, I'll stay. Like,
Mm.
I didn't want to separate our family that way, and I didn't want to give that kind of example to our kids at the time. Like, no, like mom and dad are on the same page and we're all a family unit. So I think that was my biggest pull. Like, I was like, I cannot take my kids to two different types of services. I can't teach them two different theologies. I don't want, I mean, I come from a very broken family.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of like, that's not what we're going to do. Like, we've been a unit this entire time. I'm not going to let this pull that apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started going to mass every Sunday on a regular basis, probably starting mid to late October, somewhere around there. And I remember talking to the pastor of the parish at the time. I remember saying, I need to become Catholic. Like, I don't know what I have to do, but can I do it now?
Yeah.
And he and I met a handful of times. I actually didn't go through, I guess at the time it would have been RCIA. But there were two books that I read. So Prayer Primer and Time for God. He asked me to read those two books before I came into the
And
church.
I remember it was the fastest you've ever read a book in your life.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I enjoy reading, but like I'll read 3 chapters and then set it down for 6 months to a year, and then read another chapter or two, and then set it down for another 6 months.
That, or
to a
you
year.
consistently read it, but it's like a page a day.
Yeah.
And when it's like a 250-page book, it takes a really long time.
But thankfully, these were both really small books. Like
I think you had a really big incentive to
Yeah,
to finish them.
yeah, like 50 to 100 pages, somewhere around there each. But
Yeah.
they were really good. Like both of them were solid. Because he asked me, I remember one time we met at a coffee shop, and he
Mhm.
said, "What in your spiritual life right now could use improvement?" And I said, "Prayer, like for sure." I said, "I pray at meals most of the time, maybe, but other than that, like I said, I don't really ever pray about anything else." And he was like, "Perfect." And then that's when he gave me the two books. He said, "Buy these, read these, and then come back to me, and we'll talk about bringing you into the church." So I bought them on Amazon, got like 2 days shipping or whatever it was. I was even
Yeah.
looking at maybe getting the Kindle version. Like I think I can download it right now. And
Yeah.
uh, but read those, and then I came into the church in January
Mhm.
of 2021. Is that
No,
right?
2022, because Jude had just turned one or was about to turn one.
Oh, okay. Okay, 2022. This is gonna be really confusing. I always get this mixed up. So like if it this is
It's
it
because you came in like in a really weird point in the year. Like who comes in January?
yeah.
That's like not really heard of.
And also it was during COVID times, and so all the year it was like I don't even know what year we're in. Like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all the years do fade together.
But if somebody's watching this video like 15 years later, they're probably gonna go, "Man, this guy has said 2021 or 2022." Like,
No, it's January 2022
okay,
because Jude was a year
okay.
old.
So I came into the church, and what did you think? Like when I officially became Catholic, what was going through your head?
Um, it was bittersweet. I felt like dying on the inside a little bit, but I was also like really excited and hopeful for you because the whole time, like, I know you're smart and you were pursuing the truth. And I had that in the back of my mind the whole time. Like, obviously, I married you and I trusted you to lead our family. And so this is like me trying to like trust you even blindly because I was just like, I can't believe all of this is happening. And so I felt like maybe it was death to self.
Hmm.
Um, is kind of how it felt, but I was like excited for you because I knew this is what you really wanted and what you really thought was truth. And maybe even at the time, I even had a little bit of like, again, like God sees the heart. So like, even if he's wrong, which he probably is, um, like I don't think he's gonna damn his soul to hell.
Right.
So
Yeah. And because you had a lot of people, so I had people telling me that I was becoming a heretic, or especially after I officially came into the church, had people telling me that I was a heretic. But I think you probably had more people. It's kind of, I guess, like warning you or in your ear, like, "Oh, your
yeah,
husband's a heretic now."
because of the kids,
Yeah.
like I think that was everyone's biggest ploy was like the children are involved now.
Mm.
Like, what are you going to do about your kids? Like, you have to save your children from this. Was more what I was hearing for the most part.
Yeah.
So,
So and I do remember too, after I came into the church, it seemed like you started coming to me with more questions about the faith.
well, yeah, this was our life now.
Yeah. Well, and I think we were going, like, with us going to mass every Sunday. I
Yeah, no, I had definitely had more questions. I learned a lot of stuff at mass. They would say things and I would be like, how does that make sense? And then you'd kind of explain it. And I started reading. Chad's wife, Heather, sent me a couple things. Rome Sweet Home
oh yeah.
by Scott Hahn. That was really, really good and influential in the process for sure. Because I felt a lot like his wife, Kimberly, in the book, just like what is happening? This is crazy. So I think that was really helpful, but I think a lot of it too is just me being as stubborn as I am, softening my heart and being able to admit that maybe I'm wrong about it. So I think that was a lot of it. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, because I never, like, I've had people ask me before, you especially when I tell them that I came into the
Your
church.
followers.
Yeah, my followers. Yeah. Oh, I hate that so much. But
Your community.
yeah, right. And I've had people ask like, "Oh, okay, well you came into the church and then your wife came in 2 years later, 3 years later?"
I don't know, 2024. So 2 years
Yeah,
later, like two and a half.
yeah, almost 3 years later. Like, what did you do? How did you talk to her? What did you say to her to convince her? And I don't think, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but the way that I like looking back see it is that I didn't ever really push it. Now I was like really pushy about, hey, we're going to mass every Sunday,
Right.
but I never pushed, all right, now we're going to sit down and we're going to have our Catholic Bible study.
Yeah.
Like we I really wanted to be there for you and be there to answer questions, but I never wanted to come to you and be like, "Hey, you're converting tomorrow. Like, and as my wife, you need to do what I say," kind of thing.
Right. Well, then that's not like real love.
Yeah, right.
And so, which is funny. Yeah. Um, no, I appreciated the fact that like you would let me come to you for questions. And just as far as my personality goes, if you had done that, like I probably would have gotten divorced.
Yeah.
Like, been like, okay, I'm out of here. Not only are you crazy heretic, but now you're like a control freak.
You're a
Like,
pushy, crazy heretic.
and I'm done. So that probably would have sent me over the over the edge. But no, like I think in any relationship, it's really important. I mean, one, I think we understand and know each other really well. So I think you knew the aspect of like the harder I push, the more she'll probably like pull away. Like I think if you had pushed more,
Hmm.
it probably would have taken me longer because I like to draw my own conclusions and get there when I get there and not be rushed into things. Because I mean, much like you, I like to make sure like, okay, this is the right decision. And so I think I just had to be on my own journey. Um, I think that's a good thing though. Like it's the way you lead your spouse to Christ,
Hmm.
right? So, um, I think it was a good approach for sure. I didn't feel pushed into it or anything like that. I felt more pushed into it by, I guess, other people. Like at least not pushed into Catholicism, but pushed into like making a decision
Mm.
because they were like, well, your husband's Catholic now. So like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, that was always the question. Like, when are you going to be Catholic? Are you going to be Catholic? Like, what are you?
Mm.
And I was like, really great question. I have no idea. Like, cause I'm not really Protestant anymore. I'm definitely not Catholic. And I'm just like in this really weird in between state of being. Like my theology doesn't really align with either one. Like,
Yeah.
and so that was definitely a journey and it was a super, super incredibly hard and dry season.
Yeah, because I remember you saying a few times, like, I I have big enough problems with Protestantism to not go back to being a Protestant, but also like there's issues with Catholicism that I think would be keep me from being Catholic. And I don't know if there's this, like you were saying, there it was a weird middle ground.
Yeah, the first thing that crossed Protestant off my list completely was sola scriptura.
Hmm.
Like that's the one thing I just couldn't get behind anymore. And so then I just had to follow that logic all the way through
Yeah.
to like all the other teachings and like get past those. Like I said, like the beginning with the whole rosary thing, like Mary was one of my biggest hangups, as is it's most Protestants'
Yeah.
biggest hangup. Mary is a big deal, especially when like even like having a different background than just Southern Baptist, like Mary is not talked about
Yeah.
ever.
No.
Like Christmas time, she gave birth to Jesus. The end. Like that's literally all I knew about her and all that I felt was important to know about her.
Hmm.
And so that was a really big leap, I think, to get through. And then the next thing was the Eucharist.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the final portion of my journey to becoming Catholic was trying to figure out the Eucharist.
Hmm. That's right. Because I remember, yes, I remember so many conversations about how Jesus is truly, really, and substantially present in the Eucharist, but he's
Yeah.
not physically present in the Eucharist in the sense that like the bread doesn't turn into the flesh of Jesus and the wine doesn't turn into the blood of Jesus, like literal physical blood. Like the accidents still remain. And
Yeah.
then I remember you saying like, "Oh, so it's like Jesus is with the bread and the wine." And I said, "No, no, no, that's consubstantiation. Like that's a more of a Lutheran thing." And you were like,
I
it
literally couldn't
doesn't
wrap
make
my
sense
head
to me."
around it. I was just so dumbfounded the entire time. And I think I finally got, and this is still how I think about it, is like the essence of the physical things, like the cracker and the wine is Jesus. But like the physical,
Right.
tangible parts are not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then I just had to get past it, you know?
Yeah.
I think that was the turning point. So I got past the Marian dogmas and just Mary in general. Had a really great relationship with Mary, actually, like, because I just did my Marian consecration
Yeah.
in June, which was a really wild experience. But yeah, I think also have a lot of like mother wounds, as people like to refer to them as, and like I said, I come from a broken family, and so the whole Mary as your mother aspect was baffling and also healing at the same time. Um, One of the biggest things was June of, I guess that would have been 2024, before I became Catholic. I had this really big blow up
Hmm.
with my family and my biological mom, and just threw me for an entire loop. My health was in a really bad situation. I have like an autoimmune disease, and like I'm dealing like probably the worst health I've ever been in. We were dealing with black mold in our house and like a bunch of other like things, like our car was breaking down that we just bought, and like all of this stuff was happening. And then my biological mom and I like just got into it. And so I remember it was it had to have been, what day did I do the Marian consecration? It was a feast day in June. What is the feast day?
Oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot and I don't know
I
the
can't
answer.
remember. I did the Marian consecration. I should know. Um, but anyway, it's this feast day, and our church is Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Yeah, so our church crowns Mary.
Hmm.
And I remember still being in this real weird place with Mary in 2024, and like kind of like in this haze and sitting on the sidelines and like being like, this is so weird. They are literally carrying a statue around and putting flowers on a statue. And I just remember being like really cynical this entire time. Obviously, I'm still dealing with like bitter emotions from like everything going on in our life.
Hmm.
And then like it was kind of like you said, like this really weird, mystical kind of experience where I was looking at Mary and I like didn't physically hear, but
Hmm.
like I heard what I only can say would be Jesus saying like, your earthly mother may have forsaken you, but mine never will. And so like it was indescribable. Like I couldn't deny that was who was saying it and what he said. And I think that was kind of the turning point to where like that was a really healing moment for me, because I was dealing with so much strife with my mom.
Hmm.
And so it was like, holy cow, she really is here for like us, for like her children. And so I think that was a huge draw. And then after that, I was like, okay, we're done. Like Mary's good. Me and Mary are good. Like I can't deny like Jesus saying that to me and being like, you're wrong. And so then I moved on to like, okay, but what about the Eucharist?
Hmm.
Like it was my next big thing. And then a couple months later, like I'm going through this season. At this point, I feel like I'm just being like really stubborn and like just trying to grasp at straws to not become Catholic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but I have to understand what the Eucharist is. And I don't understand. And I can't, I mean, and I do appreciate this aspect of, is like, I could not in good conscience go up and receive the Eucharist, thinking to myself every time, like, this is bogus.
Yeah.
Like that felt like a really big deal to me. Like you're saying this is not just you're saying, Jesus said that like this is my body and this is my blood, but like I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I feel like that's a big no for me to be like, oh yeah, I'll be Catholic
Right.
and like go up and be lying to myself and to everyone around me,
Yeah.
like that I believed it. And so dealing with that, praying with that, coming on 2 years of like completely dead spiritually, dead emotionally. And like, I remember we were in the cry room and it was kind of just this moment of surrender where I was like, you know what? Like, they were consecrating the host. And I just remember looking at it. And this is what I told the priest when he called me into the meeting to ask me, like, oh, what changed
Mm-hmm.
so fast? And it was like another one of those experiences where I was just like, I just want you. And this is who you say you are. And this is what you say, you know, to do. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm going to do by faith. And I may not comprehend it and logically understand it, but like I believe it in faith.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it was just like, yeah, like you are who you say you are. And I trust everything else in the Bible. Like, why am I not going to trust this one thing? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the one that doesn't make sense now, not the Eucharist. It's me.
Yeah.
I'm the problem. And
Right.
so that was kind of like my big turning point where I was like, whatever. It was a moment, I think, of surrender. I think that's what I had been battling the last few months was just pride and stubbornness. And also, like, that was the final straw of like, this is us fully committing to being Catholic, not just you. I can't rely on the excuse to my other Protestant friends of like, oh, well, it's Matt.
Yeah, right.
Like, cast
It's
the
not
blame on
me.
him.
Yeah.
It's both of us now. We're in it together. And it's a heavy cross to take on when you're facing like emotional like hurdles,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as far as friendships and that kind of stuff goes. So, and then I became Catholic.
Yeah. Well, I can remember. So I said I was not pushy, but I do remember the second you'd said, I think I'm going to become Catholic now. I do
You're like,
remember.
got to pounce on this opportunity.
Yeah. At that point, I was very pushy because I was like,
Have
all
you set
right,
up that meeting? Have you set up that meeting
yeah.
yet? I remember that.
Because I was like, you said you wanted to do it. And so now I'm going to hold you accountable because you said you were going to do it. Like up to this point, you didn't say you were going to do it. Now you
Yeah.
did.
I remember being on the couch. I think it was after mass, after that mass. And I was just like on the couch and the kids had gone down and you were in the kitchen making coffee for 15 minutes. And like, I was just on the couch and I think I sighed and I was just like, I, I think I'm going to do it. And you were like, do what? And I was like, I think I'm just going to talk to Father and I'm just going to become Catholic. I was like, I don't know what I'm waiting on. Like at that point, it's just, I was like, am I going to let, I don't know if I said this, but in my head, I was like, when I stand before Christ one day, when I stand before God, am I going to say, sorry, I didn't become Catholic because I was too scared of losing my friends?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it came down to was like my relationships, which I think that probably comes from like fear of abandonment from childhood stuff. But like, I was scared to lose those relationships because it had been clearly an idol in my life.
Yeah.
You know, because it took so long and so much force to rip it away from me. So yeah, I think that was my turning point for sure. And I'm like super happy I did it. Like the day that I got confirmed, like I felt nothing but peace. I didn't feel any regret at all. So
Yeah. You were confirmed November of 2024. So
yeah.
it's been 1 year.
Yes.
And we just celebrated 10 years of marriage.
Yeah.
So I feel like this video is very timely.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, awesome. This was great. Thanks for taking time out of your busy evening and coming all the way from the living room to the office to record this with me.
It was a challenge for sure to get here,
Yeah,
especially third trimester pregnant.
that's right. With baby number 6.
Yeah, it
So
took a lot.
she's making big sacrifices here, okay? So,
Yeah, I am.
all right. Well, thank you.
No problem.
And I love you.
Ew. Makes me so uncomfortable. Stop.